Some time ago, we interviewed Matthias Johnson, the project manager, editor, and co-writer of the Symbaroum RPG for Free League Publishing. And we still get comments about what a great game Symbaroum is. Our curiosity was piqued. So we decided to review these books and see what the hype is about, starting with the Ruins of Symbaroum Player's Guide. When a company like Free League uses the 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons rule system for one of their books, it's never used in the purest sense. They change certain aspects of the D&D 5e rules so that the setting of Symbaroum feels intact. Other RPGs like Adventures in Middle-earth and Francolonia have done the same, so we're very curious to what's changed rules-wise, as well as exactly what's so great about this Symbaroum setting. What are highlights and disappointments? Stay tuned after the title. Welcome to Really Dicey. This is Manny.
Hello, Internet people. I'm RJ, and today we are taking a look at The Ruins of Symbaroum Player's Guide from Free League Publishing. There's also a Game Master's Guide and Bestiary that are separate titles. The Player's Guide is over 200 pages, and you can tell from the cover what you're getting into. This is a dark fantasy setting using the 5e rules with some modifications.
And just to be clear, the Ruins of Symbaroum books are adaptations of the Symbaroum RPG system, which has similar materials, but their own rule system. So let's talk about chapter 1. I am very impressed with the first chapter, the setting. It's very original. I could not compare it. Usually when I've done we do these reviews, I try to compare it to maybe another setting that I played in the past. But this is not Faerun, Kryn, or anything close to Dungeons & Dragons has nowadays. But if you know your history, you can surmise what time periods in Europe this was inspired by. There was once a great civilization called Symbaroum that is long gone and swallowed by the hugely unexplored and dangerous forest of Davokar. The elder folk, such as elves, ogres, and goblins, live in the forest, and they have a spiritual connection with the forest that makes them extremely protective of it. Journeying from the south, you have the human empire of Ambria, who feel it is their religious right to use the resources of the forest and tame its lands. Also, the ruins of Symbaroum are rumored to still contain treasures, so treasure hunters and adventurers are keen to explore this forest. And then there are the barbarian tribes that live in the outskirts of the forest that are trying to foster peace between the elder folk and Ambrians, and also adapt to the changing times. This isn't your typical fantasy setting, where dwarves and elves and humans live together harmoniously like in D&D. Dwarves don't associate with anybody to the point that they seem very alien, and the elves and humans are close to war. There's a ton of political and religious intrigue, and there are no clear signs of who the good guys are. Even the barbarian tribes differ from one another, both culturally and morally. Along with descriptions of notable NPCs and maps, the writing this chapter, it's been a while since I read a setting that made me feel a bit anxious, a bit claustrophobic, and curiously frightened, if that's a term, at what lurks deep in Davokar. In other words, the presentation of this setting is excellent.
Section 2 contains the new rules. So let's see what changed to make dark fantasy work with the 5e system, and shop for some homebrew ideas that we can zoink. So first, there are 3 kinds of rests in Ruins of Symbaroum: short, long, and extended rests. Short rests are 1-hour rests, similar to 5e. Long rests are 8 hours, but they're different than in 5e. They're slightly better short rests. And an extended rest is 24 hours of rest in a safe location. And in that one, you regain all hit points, all hit dice, and remove your temporary corruption. This small change makes travel and adventure more grueling, and it makes safe havens a welcome sight. Another new rule addresses social challenges. Y'all have heard me complain about this weak point in 5e rules before, and here's another 5e setting trying to shore up that weakness. This new rule is pretty basic. You make an ability check for the introduction phase, either a group check or an individual one if you're using the spokesman, and the result of this might grant advantage or disadvantage on the next couple of checks. Then the main discussion takes place in a traditional role-playing dialogue sort of way. The game master can grant advantage or disadvantage depending on how the players do here. And then finally, there's an evaluation phase where a decision is being made. An ability check is made using any of the advantages or disadvantages gained so far, and a result is determined. It's very basic, but it provides some structure for social challenges. It's such a general rule that it would be easy to use in any other 5e setting. The last new rule I need to mention is one of the most important in Symbaroum, and that's corruption. You may have seen similar mechanics in other games. Characters might accrue corruption points. When they've got too many corruption points, they gain a mark of corruption, such as a taste for raw meat that they must satisfy every day, or a festering wound that doesn't heal. The most common way to gain corruption is by casting spells. This is how the system introduces risk to spellcasting, which fits very well in this setting. Out of these 3 rule changes, I would definitely use the social challenges in any other game. The changes to resting could be useful in any other gritty setting, but the corruption rules are pretty specific to a dark fantasy setting, although I have seen similar rules for Middle-earth homebrews as well.
Chapter 3 is titled Character Origins, and it has 9 choices of ancestries, or races, as D&D still calls them. The first thing you need to know is take what you know about elves, dwarves, and humans, all the races pretty much, and throw it out the window because it is all reinvented here. Because it uses the 5e rule system, the information about these origins are listed in the same manner as D&D, such as ability score increase, age, size, etc. One difference is that your origins determine what you roll for hit points. So you can be abducted humans, which are humans who were taken by elves as children and raised by them. And you can also play changelings, who are what the elves replace the abducted children with. And they grow up looking more and more like elves. Dwarves, goblins, and elves are nothing like we know of in D&D in appearance and in other tropes. Dwarves, especially here, are depicted in a way I've not seen before. Humans definitely have the most backgrounds, and all of them are interesting. You can be ogres, who are about 8 feet tall and have great stamina, but are without a nation, so they could be anywhere and have different goals from one another. They may side with the Elder Folk or with the nation of Ambria. Trolls and undead are very interesting options and have some great abilities, but will have trouble finding acceptance anywhere. For example, undead characters can only heal if they consume flesh or drink blood. So don't be surprised if other characters in your party are a bit cautious towards you.
There are 5 classes in this player guide. There's the captain, the hunter, the mystic, the scoundrel, and the warrior. The captain is a charisma-based fighter that has a lot of support features for the rest of the party, similar to a paladin but without spells. The captain's subclasses are merchant master, officer, outlaw, and poet warrior. The hunter class is similar to a ranger, with subclasses named bounty hunter, iron sworn, monster hunter, and witch hunter, which has a little bit of spellcasting. Mystic is the spellcasting class with 10 subclasses: artifact crafter, a self-taught, sorcerer, staff mage, who uses a staff for their magic, symbolist, theurg, troll singer, witch, and wizard. Each has a different twist on managing spellcasting and corruption. The scoundrel class is similar to a rogue, with subclasses like explorer, former cultist, which has a little bit of spellcasting, guild thief, sapper, spy, thug, and treasure hunter. And then finally, the warrior class is similar to fighter and barbarian classes, with subclasses named berserker, duelist, knight, runesmith, tattooed fighter, templar, weapon master, and wrathguard. So even though there are only 5 classes to choose from, there are 32 subclasses, and that gives players a lot of choices for their character builds.
One of the things that makes this book brilliant is how everything is tied into the setting, and that includes the final section, resources. Most sections about equipment in other role-playing games seem very similar to one another, and at times seems like an afterthought. But each item described here tells you where it fits in the setting, and there's new weapons I don't think I've heard of before, including some new alchemical items and explosives. There's a great section about the currency system, which lore masters should keep an eye on if they want Symbaroum to feel like Symbaroum. There is also 30 pages of new and adapted spells. One note I have to add before we wrap up our segment, the design layout and artwork featured here is marvelous and extremely thematic to the overall setting of Symbaroum. From cover to back cover, the use of color and depictions give you a sense of dread and darkness more than anything Wizards of the Coast has produced in the last 5 years, and that's including their Ravenloft books. Those of you who were impressed with Free League's Bison and One Ring books will be just as happy with the originality and care for the art style of this book.
For me, dark fantasy isn't really my style, but this player's guide really sets the tone in an intriguing setting. The character options and rule changes work well together to create a really compelling game. There are a lot of character options in this guide. So while the genre is not for me, I respect the great work that went into developing this game.
For me, dark fantasy is closer to my style, and this game is a must for my collection. I think this is a fantastic player's guide. Wizard of the Coast, take note. If you enjoy the 5th edition D&D rule system, or if your players do, and if you're looking for something more serious, challenging, thought-provoking setting with wonderful new rules that I feel like enhance the 5e rule system, and that also has a great feeling of exploring the unknown, get this book. If the purpose of this book is to get you to consider the Symbaroum role-playing game that has its own rule system, then to the Forest of Dabakar I go. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. And don't forget to purchase your Explorer's license this season. Take care.